Hey, welcome to Zcon 6, everybody. My name is Jack Gavigan, and I'll be doing the welcome address for this year. We are pleased to announce that this year Zcon 6 is a joint effort between the Zcash Foundation, the Electric Coin Company, the Zcash Community Grants Committee, and ZecHub. In previous years, ZF wrangled the entire event, managed the schedule, and dealt with RFPs. This year, we've split it up into multiple days, and we're letting each organization take a single day and curate the content for that day. And we've got a great slate of content lined up, as well as those four organizations. We've got a bunch of other organizations, both within and beyond the Zcash ecosystem. And we'll be hearing from a whole bunch of people over the next 4 days, including Vitalik from Ethereum. We've also made it interactive thanks to the ZKAV Club. You can take part in a competition. The creators of the best video clips of Zcon 6 will be able to share in the prize pool, which currently stands at 108 ZEC. And if you want to learn more about that and to learn how to take part, please visit zkav.club for more details. So let's plunge straight into talking about the state of Zcash in 2025. There's some really, really good news. Our ecosystem is growing, as you've just seen, thanks to all those organizations, individuals who are participating in this event, and it's becoming more decentralized. We have more teams contributing to Zcash community and education initiatives, and more teams are working on core protocol features. We're also moving Zcash to a new technology stack, but there are still decisions to be made, and one of the most important ones that will be coming up in the next few months is how the funds that are currently stored in the Zcash lockbox are to be distributed. If we look at the regulatory landscape, and I'm going to focus here specifically on the US because that's the one that's the most active at the moment. There's certainly no doubt that the new administration is more crypto friendly, and there seems to be a growing awareness of the importance of privacy, but we still face challenges. There's no guarantee that crypto friendly will equate to privacy friendly. So we need to lean into that. And in order to help with that effort, the Zcash Foundation has joined the Blockchain Association, which leads the efforts of educating policymakers and legislators in Washington, D.C. And board member Jay Verrett will be leading our efforts in DC as our ambassador. Now, I want to return to the lockbox that I mentioned earlier, and to give some context to this decision. The first dev fund ran from November 2020 to 2024, and that funded three organizations: the Zcash Community Grants Organization, the Electric Coin Company, and ourselves, the Zcash Foundation. In 2024, that dev fund ended, and a new dev fund was put in place with the Zcash Community Grants Committee as the sole recipient of those funds, and with the remainder of the funds going into a protocol lockbox. So the question that we face now is how should those funds be distributed? Um, there's a general feeling that a grants model is the best way to fund Zcash development and ecosystem efforts going forward. The question is who should decide which grants should be approved. Various proposals are being discussed on the Zcash Community Forum, and in the coming weeks, the Zcash Foundation will host some open community town halls to allow community members to join, to share their views, and to discuss the various proposals. And in due course, we will go ahead and poll Zcap to determine which proposal the community supports. With regards to the Zcash Foundation itself, we have become a little bit smaller since the last Zcon last year. We've bade farewell to Tior, Chelsea, and Dan, but we've also welcomed Elise as our Chief Communications Officer. Elise had been working with us part-time prior to that, but she's now working with us full-time and doing some great work on efforts like producing a discussion paper on participatory grant mechanisms. We continue to be financially prudent. That's something that started back in 2023 when it became clear that the then US administration wasn't particularly friendly towards the crypto sector. We tightened our belts, we reduced our budget, and we've kept it going that way since. And as a result, as of today, we have a runway that lasts until late 2027. We've recently had some changes to the Zcash Foundation board. Peter van Valkenburg and Amber Baldet have both stepped down. Peter is now serving as the executive director at Coin Center, so he's still leading the good fight on behalf of cryptocurrencies like Zcash. And we'll be hearing from him later as part of the regulatory panel that we have scheduled for later today. Amber remains deeply involved in the Zcash ecosystem as she is on the board of the Financial Privacy Foundation, which is the organization that now serves as the home for the Zcash Community Grants Program. And in their places, community members Taylor Hornby and Ted Huffman have stepped up to join the board. Taylor will be familiar to many people as he's been involved in Zcash since very early on. He served as head of security at ECC and then also worked on security for the broader ecosystem under a grant from the ZCG committee. And Ted has been part of the community for quite some time. And we're pleased to welcome them both to the board so that we now have community representation on the board of the Zcash Foundation. Another big change for us this year is that the foundation became the sole steward of the Zcash trademarks. I want to provide a little bit of background to that. The trademarks were first registered by ECC back in 2016, and they were used to prevent the creator of Z Classic from naming it Zcash Classic, which would have caused a fair degree of confusion around the time that Zcash was launching. In 2019, ECC donated those trademarks to the Zcash Foundation, and both organizations entered into an agreement which governed how the trademarks were to be used and how the name Zcash was to be applied to the Zcash cryptocurrency. That involved various agreements to not change the protocol without the other party's agreement, and to not change the way that the policy was the trademark policy was enforced without the other's agreement. Last year, ECC chose to terminate that agreement, and as a result, we revised the trademark policy. And in doing so, we believe that we've made it shorter, simpler, more permissive, and more minimized in scope. And our priority is to stop bad actors from misusing the trademarks to conduct fraud or to deceive people. In terms of how that equates to governance of the Zcash protocol, well, Zcash is an open and decentralized cryptocurrency, and we don't feel that the trademarks should be used to enforce governance decisions. What we will say is that as the custodians and stewards of the Zebra node software, which will soon become the sole node software for Zcash, we will consult the community to determine what changes should be implemented in Zebra. But ultimately, Zebra is open source and people can fork it, they can implement whatever changes they want, and they can invite others to run that software. Now, that could lead to a hard fork of the Zcash cryptocurrency. And if that does happen and that fork is persistent, then the foundation may use the trademarks to call for naming conventions to make sure that there's no confusion between the two the two forks. But what we will not do is try to use the trademarks as a means of persuading the larger public that one or other fork is the only legitimate version of Zcash. For the Zcash Foundation itself, we've been working for a long time on Zebra, which is a new Rust-based implementation of the Zcash protocol. That's been launched. It's in use in the wild, and I'm happy to be able to say that the majority of light wallets now use Zebra at the back end. Our other major piece of research work was on Frost, which provides multi-sig functionality for shielded Zcash, and that is now ready for wallet integration. So right now, our primary priority is focusing on getting Zebra ready for Zcash deprecation. And I'll talk a little bit about the new stack that we're moving to once Zcash is deprecated. And once that is done, we'll be looking at supporting the ecosystem for migrating from Zcash to that new stack, and then the future enhancements to Zcash, which include adding Zcash shielded assets to Zebra and any other NU7 features. So looking at the Zcash technology stack, today we have Zcash, which is the OG Zcash node dating back now 8 years. It was originally a fork of Bitcoin D, so it is beginning to show its age, and it's been developed and maintained by ECC since 2016. We also rely on a set of core crypto libraries which implement the zero-knowledge proofs-based functionality of Zcash. Those are implemented in Rust, and again, those are developed and maintained by ECC. Then finally, the key piece for light wallets is Light Wallet D, which is written in Go, and that makes it possible to use light wallets like Y Wallet, Zashi, and Zingo Wallet to interact with the Zcash blockchain. That again has been developed and maintained by ECC. But we're pleased to be able to say that that now can connect and use Zebra at the back end as well as Zcash. And finally, we have Zebra, which is the new consensus node, but which does not have as much inbuilt functionality as Zcash. And most importantly, it does not have a command line wallet of the type that is used by exchanges. It relies still on ECC's core libraries, but it is developed and maintained by the engineering team here at the Zcash Foundation. And most importantly, it's built in Rust, which is a modern memory-safe language. So the new stack looks like this. It will have Zebra as the core node. There will be a piece of middleware called Zeno, which is under development by Zingo Labs, and that will act as an indexer, and it will also replace the Light Wallet D server and provide a mechanism for light wallets, a drop-in mechanism for light wallets to be able to connect to the Zcash network. And then finally, the Electric Coin Company is working on Zale, a new CLI wallet, which will provide the sort of mechanism and functionality that exchanges, miners, and such like need to be able to handle crypto deposits, withdrawals, and distributions. So that is currently under work, and at the end, once that is complete, we will have a fully Rust stack, so a modern memory-safe modular language, which provides a really good platform for the future development of Zcash. And that future development will take place, or will start with NU7, and there are a bunch of features which are being proposed for inclusion in that network upgrade. We do face a challenge though. The more things that we try to include, the longer it is likely to take to get that network upgrade scheduled and deployed. So my personal view is that we should be focusing on getting Zcash shielded assets deployed first, and then dealing with the rest of the features at a later date. But we will be reaching out to the Zcash community, polling them, and getting their feedback on which features should be prioritized. And just to look back at how we got here, way back in 2021, we did a similar type of poll of Zcap, in which we asked what they believed the short and long-term priorities for Zcash should be. And in the short term, there was clear support for adding what used to be called user-defined assets and what we now know as Zcash shielded assets to the Zcash protocol. And then the longer term, there was support for adding programmability. In both the short and long term, there was also strong support for moving away from proof of work to proof of stake or something similar. And it's a little bit unfortunate to be here 4+ years later and to not really have made any significant progress on deploying any of these features. But there is a lot of work that's gone into these, and hopefully we'll see some deployed by the end of this year. Now, this kind of brings me on to a topic that I want to introduce to the community, which is around the technical challenges that we face as an ecosystem seeking to move Zcash as a protocol forward. The top one that we're just on the verge of sticking a line through is the fact that we've been relying on an aging C++ code base, described as hell by some of the developers who have worked on it. But it's great that we're now on the verge of being able to retire the old Zcash DE and introduce a new code base that will be simpler and easier for teams to develop on. But as I've just highlighted, we face what I call the network upgrade bottleneck, which is where if we have a bunch of features that people want to see deployed into the Zcash protocol, we have to be very careful to make sure that we don't introduce too much complexity. And we also need to make sure that we have enough resources to review and merge changes to the core software. And obviously more changes, more features, that leads to a longer lead time because it takes longer to review and merge those. We also have a challenge of coordinating across multiple teams, and some of those teams are all working on the same software, so that can lead to moving goalposts for various teams. And we also have a protocol that has been running now for 8 years. So there's a lot of features in there that we still have to support, but which aren't really used anymore, or indeed aren't desirable anymore. Over those 8 years, we've seen a huge amount of growth of the blockchain, not least because of the sandblasting attack that happened from 2022 to 2023. So all this begs the question of, how do we best move forward in a way that allows us to become more efficient and more agile and to be able to deploy new functionality in a quicker manner. So one of the ideas that we've been kind of spitballing about is, what if we migrate Zcash to a new blockchain? We could retire the old blockchain and spin up a new blockchain, have people bridge their ZEC across, and that would leave us with a clean slate from which to work with a more efficient protocol. We could get rid of some of the legacy stuff that we've inherited from Bitcoin, and we could move forward with some of the new features that are in the pipeline, things like atomic swaps coming hot on the heels of the deployment of ZSAs. We also have the Electric Coin Company and Shielded Labs working on trailing finality, which is an important feature with regards to blockchain interoperability in the future. And we also have Shielded Labs, who have created or built the network sustainability mechanism feature, which will help ensure that Zcash remains sustainable in the long term. So here I've kind of illustrated how we might conceivably move from the current protocol to a new, more streamlined protocol. And one of the key important factors in that is building a bridge that can allow people to migrate their ZEC from one to the other. And that's something that we at the Zcash Foundation have become quite interested in. And we've thought a lot about it and thought about the advantages that that bridges can bring to Zcash. We already, of course, have teams who are working on bridges. We have the Red Dev team who are building a bridge from Zcash to the Avalanche network, and that will allow for ZEC to be bridged from Zcash onto other chains and to be able to be used in a tokenized fashion on those other chains. After Zcash shielded assets are deployed, however, we also have the possibility of taking assets from other chains onto the Zcash network. And then once atomic swaps have been deployed, the prospect of being able to trade those assets on the Zcash network in a shielded fashion using atomic swaps. And then finally, we could also, if we have bridge functionality built into the Zcash protocol, And to be clear here, I'm talking about non-custodial bridge functionality. So a situation where you don't have to trust anybody to operate the bridge. Then it also opens up the possibility of being able to operate side chains alongside the main Zcash chain. And what this could potentially do is open up the possibility of loosening that bottleneck that we have when we try to add too much into the Zcash protocol. We could look at creating side chains that will allow teams to deploy new functionality and features in a way where Zec can be bridged from the primary chain onto those side chains for people to experiment with and to play around with new features. And if we can do it for one, then why can't we do it for multiple chains? And we could potentially be looking at a situation where more and more teams can come to Zcash in the knowledge that if they want to introduce new features and make Zcash more functional, they're not facing this bottleneck of needing to squeeze everything into a potentially limited number of network upgrades. And this is a potential feature for Zcash that we think could make it more welcoming and attractive to other teams to come and build upon. The possibility of being able to add new features that people can then experiment with, and ultimately potentially be able to see which ones gain traction and therefore might be worth adding that functionality into the primary chain, and which ones ultimately don't get used and end up potentially retiring. But this is something that we're interested in exploring. The first step is to look at bridges, and so in the sort of medium term, that's what the Zcash Foundation engineering team is going to start researching and looking at. And what we're intending to do is to look at what options are available to take existing software off the shelf and apply it to Zcash rather than trying to build something from scratch ourselves. So it wouldn't be a good presentation, I feel, if we didn't finish off with one more thing in the best traditions of Apple's presentations. And in this case, I've been working on Zcash since shortly before it launched. And in that time, the Zcash community has grown from just ECC to the ecosystem that we have today that I showed on that slide earlier, with multiple teams contributing to Zcash in a variety of different ways. And as the Zcash ecosystem grows and becomes more decentralized, which is something that we very much want to happen, its institutions must also adapt and evolve, and that is especially true of the Zcash Foundation. It's been my privilege to lead the foundation over the past 4 years, but part of my responsibility as executive director is to recognize when the time is right to step down and to let someone else take the helm. And I believe that time has now come, and so I'm pleased to be able to announce that I'm stepping down as executive director of the Zcash Foundation. Alex, our COO, will be stepping up as interim ED while the foundation board recruits a new successor. And I want to thank the foundation team and its board members, both past and present, for granting me their trust, support, and their patience over the past 4 years. I'll continue to be part of the Zcash ecosystem. I will continue to support the foundation and the broader Zcash mission as a community member. But going forward, it'll be somebody else leading the Zcash Foundation, and I'll be cheering them on from the sidelines. So with that, it's still time to get on with Zcon. And next on the schedule, we'll have an update from the Zcash Foundation engineering team about Zebra and Frost. So tune in for that at the top of the hour.